Welcome to my channel. My name is Nairi and I'm an adopter with 2 adopted sons, and today I'm going to talk to you about single adopters and what they bring to the table and the things that they can look out for when they go for adoption. Many people think that you can't adopt if you're single, but of course you can, and I want to discuss with you the things to look out for your network, the things to watch out for relatives, but also the things that you bring to the table that people that are in a relationship don't bring. So first of all, what I want to say to you is when you go for adoption as a single adopter, I think one of the key issues is looking for the right match of child. Now that would happen for any adopters, of course. You would be helped by the social worker to find the right match of child, but as an adopter I think it's even more essential for you, because you are going to be on your own a lot of the time in the house. So you have to know what you can cope with for levels of behaviour, levels of aggression, and just generally what types of abuse and neglect a child has come from. So if you know there's certain things that might be triggers for you or certain things you think you can't cope with, I think it's really important from the outset to be able to discuss that with a social worker, because you don't have anyone else immediately at hand that you can then help you with that child's behaviour. So you might have people you can call on, but you don't necessarily have someone in the house, and that's the main difference between you and somebody as a couple. But of course, as a single adopter, you do bring many strengths to the table, so I want to go through those as well with you. So one strength as a single adopter is the ability to be resourceful and to cope on your own, and not to have to rely on anybody else. And this is a real strength, because sometimes when you're in a relationship, some of you do some things, some of you do other things, but you don't both do all things. But as a single adopter, you've had to learn to budget for yourself, you've had to learn to keep a household going. You've learned who the friends are that you can rely on, the relatives that you can rely on, and the things that you need to kind of not have in your life. And I think you're going to be stronger because of that. And many single adopters are very, very strong. And although I'm not a single adopter, I do know some. And they find ways of muddling through. They find ways of kind of fighting for their child. And they're generally very strong advocates because they have to be. So when you come to the process, if you're not in the process already, don't see yourself as second best because you don't have a partner. See yourself as in your own right, in your own entirety, that you're bringing something completely different to the adoption process, and you will go into it with a much better mindset. So what you're going to need to do is look at your current support network, and within that support network, more than any other adopter, you're going to need to know that you have the practical support very close at hand, because you are going to have times and days when your child is off from school, or you need that practical support and you need to be able to call on someone really quickly. So that's going to be key, absolutely essential, and the social worker is going to be looking at that for you. So what do you need in that support network? Well, the first thing to say of what you don't need is someone that's actually going to take over your life. Now this is a danger with single adopters, because I think maybe your friendships are closer, your bonds are stronger with other people, and you might have friends that you spend a lot of time with, and there is the danger, of course, that somebody is going to tell you how to do things and what to do, and that you could then rely on somebody so much that actually they try to parent the child for you, and that's going to be a big mistake, because adopted children need consistency. They need that primary attachment figure, which is going to be you, and it can't be anybody else. So even though you need a strong backup plan and you need somebody else that you can drop your child off to sometimes and have very, very regular breaks, of course you're not going to want those people to take over and tell you what to do with the child. So look very closely at those relationships you have and start working out who is going to be that person, those people that you can really rely on for your support, and be strong enough to identify those who might actually be a type of people to take over and to start parenting the child. And within that adoption network support, you might also need people that can do additional jobs for you in a way that a couple wouldn't need to have. So it might well be that in the early days you're going to need somebody to come in and do a little bit of housework, a little bit of cooking for you, and that could be the same for a couple, but it may be more so for you, because there's only going to be you concentrating on building up that attachment with a child. So you don't want to be distracted by the dog, the housework and the shopping and that type of thing. So it might be really good to identify, especially in the early days, or even pay for it if you can, to have those extra jobs done for you. It's also going to be essential for you to have a very flexible employer. Now, again, that's the same for those who are couples, but even more so for you. So if your child runs into a few problems that trauma are creating, or they are off from school a lot, or you just feel that you need to be there more, then your employer is going to be crucial to the success, in a way, of being able to feel free and guilt-free to actually do what you need to do for the child. And also, I would say as well that you need to look really closely at your hours and try to work out a way that you can cope financially but not max out your hours, because again, even if you take the time off that you're requested to take off, so which will probably be a minimum of 6 months but sometimes up to 12 months depending on the age of your child, you are going to need to go back to work quite slowly and ease your way back in, because trust me, it's a real shock to be off work from that long and then suddenly have to go back. And it's a shock for the child to have to start living life differently without that main attachment figure there for them all the time. And this is where I bring in kind of like a really big, not problem with single adopters. It's not a problem with single adopters. It's by way of how the relationship kind of works when it's you and a child. So what happens is the intensity of the relationship builds quite quickly with you because it's you and that child. So they are making that connection with you as an attachment really, really quickly. Whereas with a couple, because things are shared more, the attachment is split around a little bit more. So it can be, not always, that the relationship between you and the child becomes quite intense quite quickly and very, very close. Now that's great from an attachment point of view, but of course it makes it really hard then when life returns to normal or when you can't be there for them. And so you need to watch really closely that you don't become sucked into that too much. So in the beginning, yes, of course, do everything you possibly can for the child, but always have in the back of your mind that you're going to need somebody else to kind of be that second attachment figure, to be that second, as if you were in a couple kind of relationship, person that you can rely on, that child can feel close to. Try to introduce them, not too early, but fairly early on, so that child gets used to sometimes being with that person, because otherwise the closeness can be so much that the separation for the child when they have to go and do different things is just too painful for them, and they will really, really struggle with that. And the other side of it as well, you just always need to remind yourself that you are the parent and they are the child, because in many relationships with adopted children anyway, they will try to parent you sometimes and want to remain in control and have the final say, because letting go is really difficult for them. So again, you're going to have to be really careful with that as a single adopter, because you could end up in a relationship where you're almost on an equal footing as far as kind of boundaries and rules are concerned, when actually you're the one that needs to be in control. And likewise, just as a child might become overly intense with you, you may find yourself becoming actually totally reliant on them as well for company and for that closeness. And I know what you're saying is like, isn't that a good thing? And it is a good thing. It is a good thing that you're building that attachment. But of course, the danger is that you can never kind of separate yourself away from the child and get the breaks you need, which is what I'm going to come on to now. So in every single video, well, not every single video, but I've said so many times, breaks are just so important. You have to have breaks. You have to have breaks from parenting what can sometimes be difficult situations. And as a single adopter, you're going to need that even more. So you have to build in those other relationships around you to allow you to be able to take those breaks. So what you're going to be looking for in that support network is people who are confident to do that, to allow you to have a weekend away, even a day away, but that actually you know the child's going to be okay and will do sleepovers with. So again, it's the same for couples, but you're going to need to build that in possibly earlier than what couples would, knowing that your child is going to be able to stay overnight with someone. I mean, ideally that would be a close relative, but it might have to be that you build that in with a friend that is able to do that for you. Now, in the early days, you might not be able to imagine that you can even do that, and you might not even feel that you want to do that, but trust me, it's best to build it in even before you feel you want to do that, so that when you desperately need that break, and you will come to need that break desperately, then that is already set up ready for you to go. It might well be that within the adopter group that you have, that you are going through the process with, that there'll be another friend that's fairly local to you that you can do some shared care with. So you offer to have their child for some hours, they offer to have your child for some hours, and that's how it works generally in family life anyway. In school life, parents will do that, but obviously you're going to need that trusted person that understands what types of behaviours might be expected, and so you might be able to do something reciprocal and build up a relationship with someone at the moment that you don't even actually know. So as a single adopter, of course, you bring to the table something completely different and completely new, and you are offering a one-to-one relationship in many cases, which is going to be different for other adopters. And sometimes there are children out there who really need that. They need to have that one-to-one relationship with one person that's going to be there for them and is going to commit to them. There's no other siblings around, there's no other member of the relationship around, and some children actually really need that, and social workers will be looking for that for those particular children. But that might be that those children have additional needs, or they have very obvious behaviours affected by childhood trauma, so they might be a little bit more difficult and they might be a little bit more complex. But again, there's no reason why that can't be you that takes that type of child on. So I hope that helps you as a single adopter, and I hope that inspires you if you haven't moved forward yet and you've been doubting whether it could be something for you. And please subscribe to Adoption with Nairi. I have playlists on there all about children's behaviour. I'll link that in at the end for you so you can tap into what children's behaviours when they're adopted might look like. Thank you for watching Adoption with Nairi.